Steve, and I just believe that I had to protect my players.
When they all said that the Dodgers was dead, that's when we came to life.
Shuttle is possibly through.
MLB players really did say nobody liked him the first time they faced Don Drysdale, and they had good reason. Standing 6 feet 6 inches tall with a sidearm delivery that turned his fastball into a weapon, Drysdale created fear on the mound like few pitchers ever have. His record of hitting 154 batters stands as a modern National League record, but that number tells only part of the story. This was not wildness. This was deliberate psychological warfare. Batters who dug in against Big D had to stay loose at the plate or risk getting drilled. Hall of Famer Orlando Cepeda put it plainly. The trick against Drysdale is to hit him before he hits you. That was not trash talk. It was a survival guide. What made facing Drysdale so terrifying? Why did his own teammates describe his fastball as feeling like a big rock? Why were veteran stars begging their manager to put him in the game during the most important moment of the season? The answers reveal a career built on intimidation, physical punishment, and a competitive fire that both defined a dynasty and left scars on everyone who faced him. When Drysdale made his major league debut on April 17, 1956, at just 19 years old, he was not joining just any team. He was joining the defending World Series champion Brooklyn Dodgers, a roster loaded with legends. For a young pitcher, the most important relationship is with the veteran ace, and Drysdale had the ultimate mentor in Don Newcombe. But Newcombe was not just any ace that year. In 1956, he put together one of the most dominant seasons in baseball history, winning a career-high 27 games and becoming the first player ever to win both the Most Valuable Player Award and the inaugural Cy Young Award in the same season. Think about that. While Drysdale was learning the ropes as a rookie, his mentor was simultaneously defining the highest possible standard for pitching excellence. Newcombe, who had broken barriers alongside Jackie Robinson and Roy Campanella, showed the young Drysdale what it meant to be a workhorse ace. It meant 25-plus wins. It meant being undisputed. It meant owning the mound. Drysdale was essentially apprenticed to the first-ever Cy Young winner, creating a direct line of succession from the Brooklyn Boys of Summer to the Los Angeles dynasty that would follow. But intimidation came with a cost, even for his own teammates. In 1957, the Dodgers added catcher John Roseboro to the roster, and he would become the man tasked with catching both Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale through the 1960s. A four-time All-Star, Roseboro offered a striking technical comparison between the two aces. Despite Koufax having legendary explosive velocity, Roseboro said his pitches felt light. Drysdale, by contrast, threw what Roseboro called a big rock. That fastball would bruise Roseboro's hand right through the mitt, pitch after pitch, game after game. The heavy, bone-jarring impact came from Drysdale's blazing sidearm delivery, which created a boring action and heavy sink that punished hitters and catchers alike. Roseboro was candid about the difference between the two pitchers. Drysdale was a good pitcher, he said, but he had to work hard to win. Koufax made it easy and took the pressure off. This was not a criticism, but an astute observation. Koufax was the surgical artist who baffled hitters with physics-defying movement. Drysdale was the fierce competitor who won through brute force, physical intimidation, and relentless hard work. His approach depended on overpowering hitters physically, and he often pushed the limits of safety. Do you think intimidation still has a place in modern pitching, or has the game moved past Drysdale's style? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because the rules have definitely changed since his era. The Dodgers dynasty that emerged in Los Angeles was built on this foundation of aggressive pitching. When outfielder Wally Moon joined the team in 1959, he witnessed firsthand how the championships of 1959, 1963, and 1965 came together. Moon was blunt in his assessment. The Dodger dynasty, he said, was built on pitching, with Drysdale and Koufax as its central pillars. This was not just a slogan, it was a candid strategic admission. The team was traditionally weak hitting, an identity that required its pitchers to do more than just pitch. They had to dominate and suppress offense because they could rarely count on significant run support. The weak hitting lineup meant that Drysdale's intimidation tactics were not just personal preference, they were strategic necessity. When your offense cannot score runs consistently, you need to make absolutely certain the other team scores even less. Drysdale understood this. He made batters uncomfortable. He made them think twice about digging in. He made them worry about getting hit instead of focusing on hitting. This psychological edge was the difference between winning 1-0 and losing 2-1. The Dodgers needed Drysdale to be feared because they could not afford to lose close games. His 154-hit batsmen were not accidents or signs of poor control. They were a calculated part of keeping opposing lineups off balance and afraid. The 1963 Dodgers are the perfect example. That team posted a staggering collective 2.85 earned run average. Koufax won 25 games with a 1.88 ERA, and Drysdale added 19 wins. The pitching staff carried the entire load because the offense could not. The Drysdale-Koufax tandem was not a luxury. It was the engine. They had to pitch deep into games and win 1-0 duels. Drysdale's 1-0 complete game victory over the New York Yankees in Game 3 of the 1963 World Series perfectly captured this philosophy. Pitch a shutout because you cannot expect your offense to score twice. twice. That game exemplified everything the dynasty was built on: dominant pitching, intimidation, physical presence, and the willingness to push every limit to get the win. This context makes Drysdale's own offensive contributions critically important. On a weak hitting lineup, any offensive production mattered, and Drysdale frequently provided it himself. In 1965, when the Dodgers won the World Series, Don Drysdale was the team's only 300 hitter. In 2 separate seasons, he hit 7 home runs, tying the National League record for a pitcher. For a team built on pitching that struggled to score, having your ace pitcher hit like a respectable position player was a massive strategic advantage. He did not just prevent runs, he actively produced them, solidifying his value to the dynasty. But even this dual threat role could not mask the darker reality. His dominance required fear, and fear required pain. The 1962 season crystallizes everything about Don Drysdale. It was the year he stepped fully out of the shadows to become the best pitcher in baseball, capturing his greatest individual triumph. It was also the year of the team's most devastating, soul-crushing collapse. While he was often overshadowed by Sandy Koufax, 1962 was Drysdale's year to shine. Koufax was sidelined by a circulation-numbing finger injury, and Drysdale carried the team. He won 25 games against only 9 losses. He led all of Major League Baseball in strikeouts with 232, and led the National League in innings pitched with 314.1 and games started with 41. His efforts earned him the Cy Young Award and the Sporting News Player of the Year, recognizing him as the best player in the game. The context of this award is crucial. From 1956 to 1966, only 1 Cy Young Award was given for both leagues combined. Drysdale's 1962 victory was not just a National League honor. He was voted the best pitcher in all of baseball. He put the Dodgers on his back, logging marathon innings and single-handedly pitching them into a pennant playoff. Even at his peak, though, Drysdale's success depended on fear tactics and an overwhelming workload that reflected the team's desperation more than elegance. After 162 games, the Dodgers finished with an identical 101-61 record as their hated rivals, the San Francisco Giants. This forced a best-of-3-game tiebreaker series to determine the National League pennant winner. Pressure was immense. One team would go to the World Series. The other would go home after the greatest regular season in franchise history meant nothing. Game 1 at Candlestick Park saw the Giants rout the Dodgers 8-0, defeating Sandy Koufax. The loss put the Dodgers in a desperate position. They had to win the next 2 games or their season was over. Game 2 back at Dodger Stadium saw Drysdale start and pitch his team to an 8-7 victory, breaking a 35-inning scoreless streak and evening the series. Drysdale had done his job. He had kept the season alive. Now everything came down to one game. Game 3, the decisive game played on October 3rd, 1962 at Dodger Stadium, became legendary for all the wrong reasons. The Dodgers carried a 4-2 lead into the top of the 9th inning. They were 3 outs away from the World Series, 3 outs from redemption after falling short so many times, 3 outs from proving that their pitching-first philosophy could deliver a pennant. Manager Walter Alston left his relief pitcher Ed Roebuck in the game, despite Roebuck being in his 4th inning of relief and visibly tired. Everyone in the dugout could see it. Everyone knew what was coming. Roebuck promptly gave up a single, got a force out, then walked 2 batters to load the bases. The pressure was mounting. The crowd could feel it slipping away, but the situation had actually been dire much earlier. In the bottom of the 8th inning, Drysdale, Koufax, and pitcher Johnny Padres had already pleaded with their manager that Roebuck was too tired to continue. 3 of the best pitchers on the staff were telling Alston to make a change. They could see what was happening. Drysdale, the 25-game winner, the 314-inning workhorse, the Cy Young Award winner, sat on the bench indignant, shouting, "Put me in." He was ready. He wanted the ball in the biggest moment of the season. But Alston ignored him and sent the tired Roebuck to bat for himself to end the 8th. The decision made no sense to the players who understood the game best. Now in the 9th, after Roebuck loaded the bases, Alston finally pulled him, but he brought in Stan Williams, not Drysdale. Williams immediately gave up a sacrifice fly to tie the game. After an intentional walk loaded the bases again, Duke Snider and coach Leo Durocher pleaded with Alston to bring in Drysdale. They were begging him to use his ace in the season's most critical moment. Alston refused. Williams walked in the go-ahead run. The inning unraveled. The Giants scored 4 runs and won the pennant 6-4. The fact that Hall of Fame veterans like the Duke of Flatbush, Duke Snider, were the ones pleading on Drysdale's behalf shows the immense respect he commanded in the clubhouse. They knew who their gladiator was, but Drysdale's intimidating persona may have backfired. Managers were sometimes reluctant to use him due to his volatility. Snider's desperation reflects how unstable the moment was. The 1962 Cy Young Award showed Drysdale's ability. The 9th inning of the 1962 playoff collapse showed his nature. He was the team's undisputed warrior on the bench, begging to be put into the fire, demanding the ball when the pressure was highest. But he was also a pitcher whose reputation for danger, for pushing limits, for intimidation, sometimes worked against him in the very moments he wanted most. Following the peak dynasty years, Drysdale's arm produced one last monumental achievement. In 1968, he set a new major league record with 58 consecutive scoreless innings, a streak that included 6 consecutive shutouts. It was the final defiant echo of his greatness. The end came with jarring speed. In 1969, at age 33, he suffered a torn rotator cuff, an injury that robbed his arm of its power. His final major league appearance was August 5th, 1969. Watching this decline from the dugout was Jim Gilliam. Gilliam had debuted with Drysdale back in Brooklyn in 1956 and was now a coach for the Dodgers. He witnessed Drysdale's final, painful attempts to pitch through an injury that left him in agony after every throw. The torn rotator cuff had stolen everything that made Drysdale dominant. The velocity was gone. The intimidating presence remained, but without the physical tools to back it up, intimidation meant nothing. Batters no longer feared him. They no longer had to stay loose at the plate. Drysdale spent 5 weeks on the disabled list and completed only 1 game in 12 starts. His body was betraying him. Every pitch sent pain shooting through his shoulder. Every outing reminded him that he was no longer the pitcher he had been. But he kept coming back to give it another try. He refused to accept what his body was telling him. It was this display of futile courage that prompted Gilliam to deliver the ultimate assessment of Drysdale's career. "He is as great a competitor as I have ever seen," Gilliam said. "He is a pitcher who never quits." This quote validates everything about Drysdale's career precisely because it was delivered in the context of his decline, not his prime. This was not praise for the 1962 Cy Young winner. It was praise for a broken-down 33-year-old in agony who was temperamentally incapable of quitting. The fierce competitor of 1956 was still the great competitor of 1969. In some ways, Gilliam's words mean more because they came at the end. Anyone can compete when they are dominant and healthy. It takes something else entirely to compete when your body has given up. And your career is over, but your mind refuses to accept it. Drysdale's own retirement quote captures the other side of this story. Announcing his retirement with a weeping manager Walt Alston at his side, Drysdale explained his decision. "I could not stand to be a 4-inning pitcher," he said, "and that's just about all I'm good for now." He retired not just because of the pain, but because of the ineffectiveness. For a workhorse who built his career on leading the league in innings and starts, the humiliation of being a 4-inning pitcher was a fate worse than retirement. He quit not because he could not pitch, but because he could no longer pitch like Don Drysdale. His personal standard, set by Newcomb 14 years prior, was too high to accept mediocrity. Even in defeat, even broken, there was something admirable about refusing to let go of excellence. Don Drysdale's 14-season career, spent entirely with the Brooklyn and Los Angeles Dodgers, left an undeniable mark on baseball history. His statistical ledger is definitive. A 209 and 166 record, a 2.95 earned run average, 2,186 strikeouts, and 49 shutouts. He was a 9-time All-Star, a 3-time World Series champion, the 1962 Cy Young Award winner, and the 1968 scoreless inning streak record holder. In recognition of this, the Los Angeles Dodgers retired his number 53, and in 1984, he was inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Significantly, that induction came on his 10th ballot. This decade-long wait suggests that while his peers, the men who faced him and played alongside him, had an immediate visceral understanding of his value, the Hall of Fame voters were slower to appreciate his total impact. His 209 wins, short of the 300-win benchmark, may have given them pause. But his election in his 10th year of eligibility was a long overdue validation of the qualitative factors that his statistics alone could not capture. The intimidation, the bulldog mentality, the unparalleled competitive fire. Drysdale seamlessly transitioned after retirement to a long and successful career as a radio and television broadcaster, and he published his autobiography, Once a Bum, Always a Dodger. He never left the game. His legacy is a complicated mosaic of dominant statistics and the indelible, often painful impressions he left on a generation of baseball. His greatness is measured by his 209 wins, but also by the memory of bruises on John Roseborough's hand. It is found in his 1962 Cy Young plaque, but also in Duke Snider's desperate, unheeded plea from the bench. It is quantified by his 2.95 earned run average, but given life by Orlando Cepeda's fearful respect. And his entire 14-year career, from its championship start to its agonizing end, is perhaps best summarized by Jim Gilliam's ultimate simple praise: "As great a competitor as I have ever seen." Which teammate perspective surprised you most? Was it Roseborough's bruised hands, Snider's desperate pleas, or Gilliam's final tribute to a warrior who refused to quit? Let me know in the comments what stood out to you about the way Drysdale's own teammates saw him.